All right. Good evening, everybody. I want to first thank you guys for taking some time out of your day. I know it's Thursday, and probably the last thing you guys want to do is join another webinar, but I do appreciate you guys coming out and hopefully learning a little bit more about the webinar that we put together tonight for student loan forgiveness. It's going to be primarily focused on public school educators and staff members. But if you have any questions at any time, feel free to type them into the question box. And if we have time, I'll try to go through them. My name is Jonathan Wicker, financial advisor. I've been working in the schools for about the last 15 years or so. On board, I also have my colleague, Kaylee Price. She's actually CFP, Certified Financial Planner, who's been working with us. And we're going to kind of go over some of the highlights and kind of the overview. Nothing too deep, too much details, but kind of more of the overview of the student loan forgiveness programs that are available to teachers. As I said before, quick housekeeping questions or piece. Any questions that you guys have, please put them into the question box. If they are specific in nature, we will try to get back to you either tonight or tomorrow by email. If they're more of a general question, we'll try to answer them closer to the end of the presentation. So again, I want to thank you guys for coming out. Kayla, if you want to start going through the first couple slides, and then I'll have her kick in right when we get to into the stuff. A little bit about us. This is actually, we've been doing these webinars now since the beginning of the school year. We've done a couple of webinars in a lot of your districts about the 403B, possibly the Roth 403B, talking about the fees that a lot of people don't know about and the hidden contracts that a lot of people don't know about on these 403B programs. If that's something you guys want to learn more about, shoot me an email, shoot me a call after this. We can go into that. We're going to be doing a series of webinars here every month now. So keep an eye out for any of the invites that'll be coming out every month from the school district. This month, as I said, we're doing student loan forgiveness. Next month, I'm actually really excited for that one. We have one of the heads of Duquesne's financial aid department. He's going to come on and talk a little bit about if you've got kids getting ready to go to college, questions and things to know about financial aid, applying to colleges, stuff like that. And then I think in April, we're actually going to be doing a presentation on PSERS and helping you guys understand a little bit more about how your pension works and stuff like that. If you guys have any ideas of webinars in general that you want us to talk about, shoot us an email. You know, we're more than welcome. We're willing to put something together and send it out to you guys. So this is kind of a list of all the different series that we're going to be offering throughout the course of the year. Next page. About Lincoln. Lincoln, we started in 1968, actually out of Philly, the Philadelphia School District. Doing 403Bs. We've kind of evolved since then. Kaylee and I are both financial advisors, financial planners. We do not just the 403Bs, but estate planning, life insurance, college planning, financial planning, everything. So if you guys do have questions on that at a different time, please definitely let us know, but that's kind of who we are. As I mentioned before, those are some of the things, but this is our legal piece. You got to have the lawyers involved in everything. Basically, what this is saying is that past performance is not indicative of future results, and that if you are investing, make sure that you're investing and it fits your criteria and your risk tolerance and all that. Tonight, we're not really going to be talking about risk and investing. We're going to be talking about how to get rid of those loans, which is something that you guys are probably a lot more interested in learning about. All right. So these are the programs. Kaylee's going to start going through them. I'm going to keep an eye on the questions for you guys. Anything that comes up, shoot it into the question box, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kaylee.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. So very excited to have this conversation tonight. This is going to be a brief overview of the three main programs available to you. We're not going to go too in depth, as Jonathan said. If you have any questions, even if they're specific, type it in the question box. If we can get to them tonight, we'll get to them. If they're really specific and might only apply to you, we'll reach out to you via email after and give you all the details. So the three programs we're going to go over tonight are the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, the Teacher Loan Forgiveness Program, and the Perkins Loan Cancellation for Teachers. The one thing to kind of keep in mind as we're going through here, you'll notice the public service loan forgiveness is for most employees of nonprofit organizations, public service organizations, most of the staff in the school. This is going to be an option for you. The teacher loan forgiveness and the Perkins loan cancellation are geared more towards teachers. However, in some situations, different staff members can qualify, but it really gets down to the nitty gritty there. So if you have a question, if you have a specific situation, let us know and we can see if you might qualify. So we're going to dive into the public service loan forgiveness. And the first question you're going to have is, how do I qualify? When is this going to work for me? The ideal situation, you're employed full-time for a qualifying public service organization. Now, I will say there is a scenario where you could work for multiple employers as long as you're meeting the 30 hours a week combined. You still have a chance to qualify for this, so keep that in mind. While you're employed full-time, you would have to have made 120 qualifying payments on your loans. These payments do not have to be made consecutively, but they do have to be made for the full amount due. And the big thing you have to remember is in order for this forgiveness to work, you have to be employed full-time when you apply for it and when the remaining balance is forgiven. So you can't just apply and quit your job and it still be forgiven. And the other thing, you can't be in default on any of the loans you want forgiven. You have to be actively paying towards them. So just want to point out the 120 payments, just to keep this in the back of your mind. That's typically about 10 years of payments because you're making 12 payments a year over 10 years. So with that being said, the types of loans that qualify for this forgiveness are any of your direct loans. So subsidized, unsubsidized, federal direct Stafford, federal direct consolidations. In certain situations, the PLUS loans are going to qualify, but that gets a little tricky because the eligibility is dependent on your employment, not the students. So if your parents took out a PLUS loan for you, they would also have to meet that eligibility to even be considered for this program. If you don't have direct loans and maybe you took loans out through a private lender, you do have the ability to consolidate into a federal direct loan, which would qualify. But one really important thing you want to consider is how long you've been paying on that loan, because the moment you consolidate, your 120 payment count starts over at 0. So consolidation is always an option. You just want to be careful and think it through before you do that. Now, the key to these public service loan forgiveness programs are the income-driven repayment plan. So as I said before, typically you pay off your school loans over 10 years. The standard repayment plan usually lasts about 10 years. With the income-driven repayment plan, it really is focused on reducing your monthly payment, kind of make that student loan debt more manageable when you first come out of school. And there's actually 4 main programs of how you do this. So they each do this a different way, but overall they're lowering your monthly payment either by extending out the time or increasing your interest. And that's where I'm going to get in here. So when you do an income-driven repayment plan, whether it's one of those 4 programs, each of them are going to do it differently, but most likely you're going to be extending the life of your loan past that standard 10 years, meaning that you would be paying it off over many years if you weren't qualifying for this forgiveness. Same situation if they increase your interest, you would end up owing more over a certain period of time if you paid it in full. The beautiful thing about these income-driven repayment plans and the PSLF program is after 10 years, no matter what's due, as long as you qualify, that whole balance is forgiven. I'm going to reiterate these considerations you want to make when you're looking at PSLF because they're very important. Like I said before, 120 monthly payments, so it's going to take at least 10 years of you making payments to qualify for this. And you have to be working for the qualifying employer when you submit the forgiveness and the remaining balance. The other thing to consider in this process, it's a little more involved because it is over such a long time period. Typically, you're going to be filing a form about annually, just as evidence that you're making these payments and that you're still employed with your employer. And if you change employers, they're going to keep a record of that. The reason they do this is so you don't get at the end of 10 years and all of a sudden we're looking back at every payment you made for the last 10 years and wherever you were employed if you switched jobs a few times. So it's not too involved, but involved enough where you got to keep up with it for it to be simpler and faster. Now, Jonathan, do we have any questions about the PSLF? You're muted.
All right. Yes, we actually had one question that wanted to know if we're going to have access to this presentation afterwards. So yes, all these we will be recording, and we'll be able to email you out a link to the recording afterwards. A couple of things that I did want to follow up to. If you have the Parent Plus loan, you can consolidate that into a consolidated direct loan. Generally, you're going to want to do that right when you get out of college and not after 5 years of paying, because then you're going to start all over again. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, everybody knows COVID is the worst thing in the world right now. But one of the benefits to COVID is none. But one of the benefits is that the federal government has put a temporary freeze on making payments to your loans until at least September of this year. They keep extending it and extending and extending it. But they are considering those months that you have not paid as qualified months that you technically made your payments. Even though you didn't make a payment, they're still giving you credit for those payments. So any of you guys that are on these income-based repayment plans and have these federally direct loans, you're basically getting, at this point, 1.5 years of free time that you don't have to pay. And at the end of the 10 years, you actually are only going to be paying 8.5 years and then having your loans forgiven based on, you know, the craziness of our world with stupid COVID. But everything else is, you know, Kaylee's kind of exactly nailed it. So.
Awesome. Thank you for remembering to throw in that part of the last year counting, because I forget that every now and then. With that being said, if there's no more questions on that program, we're going to move into teacher loan forgiveness. And this qualification is a little bit different. So you have to have been employed full-time as what's considered a highly qualified teacher for 5 complete and consecutive years. Now, the term highly qualified, I don't really like how they use that, but really this just means, you know, a teacher with a bachelor's degree who's state certified to teach and shows knowledge in the area that they're teaching. The way you meet this requirement, there's a few ways to do it, but that's what they mean. The other main point is you have to have been employed at a school that serves low-income students. And a little bit later on, I'm going to show you where you can go to find out if your school is considered low income or not. But just keep that in mind. And I think this one's a little obvious, but the loans that you're seeking forgiveness for, you had to have taken them out before the end of your 5 years of service. So any loans that you took to get where you are now would qualify as long as you meet the criteria.
Actually, somebody came up and just asked a quick question too, which is a good one right now. Do you need to be employed by the same school for 5 consecutive years?
I don't believe so. Yeah, it's just, it has to be the low income school. So you have to be. Awesome. So with this loan forgiveness program, all of your direct loans are eligible. And then also if you have any federal family education loans, those are also eligible.
I'll throw a little tidbit on that too, which I love, sorry. If you still have a federal family loan, those are any loans issued by the federal government prior to 2010. So that means you've had those loans for 11 years. You need to have a conversation with us to talk about how to get rid of those loans by now. After the 10 years, after 2010, they got rid of those loans, and it's only been the direct loans from here on out. So yeah, if you still have any of those old loans, definitely let us know.
Yeah, and the way this forgiveness works is a little bit different than the program we talked about before. So you're either going to be eligible to receive $5,000 in loan forgiveness or $17,500. And the amount depends entirely on the subject area that you teach. So most likely if you're teaching mathematics or science, then you're going to qualify for the whole $17,500. Any other subject areas are usually going to qualify for the $5,000. Any questions on that teacher loan forgiveness before we keep moving on?
I will say, I actually did a presentation on this with another group of schools on Tuesday. There's so many nuances on special education and all that. So if you guys are more of like a specialized situation, let us know. There's websites that you can go to find out if you qualify or not based on special education teacher. I've had people ask me, they were a guidance counselor, a school psychiatrist, different topics like that. Just let us know and we can kind of dig deeper into that for you too.
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of all of these programs, when it comes to the criteria, there's a bunch of if-then statements. So we'll definitely look into it for you.
Yeah, I just got one more question here that just came in, which is a good one. The answer, which I'll read, are you able to qualify for this even if you are already taking part of the public service loan forgiveness? The answer is no. You can't double back and piggyback off of all three of these programs. You got to choose one. So generally what people would do is maybe do the first one, the 5-year one, or it's all going to depend on your personal situation. But if you're already in the PSLF, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Plan, you're going to probably want to stay in that one. The other ones only pay off a portion of it. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness is total forgiveness for everything, all your federal loans. So I would prefer you guys focus on that one if you guys do qualify for it, than trying to get this one, which is a little bit more specialized for the 17.5 or the 5,000, depending on your position. So
definitely, and we'll kind of go into some things to consider when you're choosing programs a little later.
Yep. And then one last question that came in before we get into this one. I teach special education mathematics learning support. Would the teacher loan for forgiveness plan be a better option? Kind of like I just said before, it's all going to depend on where you guys stand in terms of what type of loan you have. Did you do an income-based repayment plan, or if you didn't do an income-based repayment plan, and do you work in a low-income school district? Preferably for me, if you do have direct loans, I would prefer everybody to try to at least do the public service loan forgiveness, because as I said before, that's a complete and total forgiveness of all your loans. It wipes out everything at the end of the 10 years with no balance remaining. The teacher's loan cancellation here, that one's only going to take out a portion of it possibly. Now, if you've only got $5 grand in student loans, that's a different conversation. That might be something Kaylee and I work with you guys on, and just pay the things off, help you come up with a budget and just pay it off and see if you qualify for it or you don't qualify for it. But as I said, those would be more specific, but generally most people would want to be aiming, if you can, for the public service loan forgiveness as long as you qualify for it.
Yeah, definitely. You want to have as much money forgiven as possible, right? So we're going to go into the last program, which is the Perkins loan cancellation for teachers. So again, this is geared more towards teachers and those serving students from low-income families. So this is a link here. I have it again at the end. You can go to the studentaid.gov and you can find out if you're considered a low-income district. Now, with this program, it's a little more broad in who qualifies. So here, special education teachers usually qualify. Teachers in mathematics, science, languages, and any other subject area where the state, so Pennsylvania, finds that there's a shortage of teachers. So say 2022 comes around and we don't have enough English teachers may qualify at that point. The last thing, private school teachers can actually qualify for this one. Their school just has to be established as a nonprofit with the IRS, and they just have to be providing education according to state law. So if you're not a public school teacher, there's still some hope there. Now, the way the cancellation works with this program is, I think, very different when I look at it. So each year, a portion of your loan is actually going to be forgiven. So in the first 2 years that you're qualifying, 15% of your loan is going to be canceled, including any interest accrued during that time period. The next 2 years, 20%, and the last year, 30%. So at the end of 5 years, 100% of your Perkins loan is going to be canceled. Now the Perkins loan, I know that was really quick, but that's pretty much all there is to it. The difficult part is finding out whether you qualify. So did we get any questions on that one, Jonathan?
No. Nope. I think everybody's getting it, which, for working with a bunch of teachers to have a blank slate here, it's kind of like you guys are in a classroom and nobody's raising their hand. Makes you a little nervous. So yeah, again, if you guys have any questions, definitely bring them in. Oh, there we go. Do you use a directory search for the school? Is that, I don't know if you mean in terms of reaching out to you guys. Do I use a directory search for the schools, or do we look for a in terms of if your school qualifies as a low income? In terms of the low income, we're going to get to that. There's a website that you can go to, which will actually tell you if your school district qualifies you for that. But otherwise, for us, we send out the stuff to the school district for you guys, so that way you guys can get the information from us. So, if that answers your question, hopefully that answered the question. Okay. Yeah, I think so far we're good, Kaylee.
All right. So we kind of alluded to this earlier, finding out which programs are right for you. We mentioned you want to get as much forgiveness as possible. So I would say the biggest factors you want to consider when deciding is, one, who your employer is and whether they're qualified as low income or not, your teaching position, so the subject you teach, the amount that you borrowed, and your income. So the PSLF program, you're going to have to be on that income-driven repayment plan. It's possible that if you come out of school making too much money, that plan's not going to work for you. It might give you the same payment as the standard plan. So your income's going to count. As we said, the amount borrowed, if you borrowed about, they say over 50,000, that's when you really start seeing the benefit of the PSLF program over the rest. And really, the main thing you want to consider with teacher loan forgiveness and the Perkins loan is if you're in a low income school and the subject area that you're teaching. And we got into this a little bit, the private loans. So you have options if you have private loans. I mean, one, you can refinance those into lower interest rate loans. The other thing, you can consolidate them into that federal direct consolidation program. Like I said, there's options, but before you do anything, you really want to make sure that you're not eligible for any of these programs, and where you stand on them, if it's worth it for you to consolidate or just kind of keep going and hope for that forgiveness. Just weigh all your options before you move forward with consolidating, because if you do, chances are you might not qualify for the programs anymore, or you're going to have to start that payment count back at zero, and you don't want to do that if you're close to getting everything forgiven.
I think you guys will hunt us down and kill us if you did that. So don't do that. Please don't do that.
So these are just some resources, studentaid.gov, it's awesome. If you don't know what type of loans you have, you can get your FSA ID, which you may already have. Log in there, you'll figure out what kind of loans you have. That'll help you know if they're going to qualify. You can also call your loan servicer. They should know that for you. Hopefully you don't sit on hold too long, but it'll work out. Studentaid.gov. So these are just a couple links to the public service and the teacher loan forgiveness. So if you want more information, we're doing a brief overview for you today. We really just want some of this to stick in your head like it might be an option for you. If you have more detailed questions, you can always go on the Studentaid website, or you can email us and we'll get the information for you. This is also the Fed loan servicing line. If you're not exactly sure who your loan servicer is, or if you have any specific questions, you can give them a call. And then if you are interested in the PSLF program, you want to know more, or you think that you're going to qualify, here's some resources. It'll get you to the form so you kind of know what we're talking about. Also a fact sheet, Q&As for the more detailed questions. And again, we just have the Federal Student Aid website. But with that, I mean, that's kind of the overview, 1,000 feet up of these programs. There's a lot more detail in there, but I mean, do we have any more questions coming in?
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off what Kaylee just said, what I would tell you guys is that it never hurts to look into these programs. Student loans suck. And we all know that. It's the worst. So if there's a program out there that is available to you guys and we can at least point you in the right direction, you guys fill out the application. The worst thing they're going to say is no. But if they come back and you find out that you do qualify for some of these, you do work in a low-income school district, it's a home run. If you work in a low-income school district, you could possibly qualify for one of 3 of these loans. If you don't, you at least could qualify for one, which is better than none. All right, so it's definitely something to look into and try to see if it's an option for you guys and see if you're available for it. One of the questions at the end is actually a legit good question. So I'm not going to say your name, but I appreciate it. Are there consulting fees that Lincoln Investment charges for meeting after this webinar, or is your company hired by certain school districts? The answer to both those questions, well, the answer to the first part of that question is no. We do not charge a consulting fee. As I mentioned in the beginning, I've been doing this for 14 years. I know how the school districts have changed in the last 14 years. Part of it is, to be honest, the cell phones. Nobody comes into the faculty rooms. Nobody, everybody's so busy with your everyday life that you guys don't have time to take for yourselves. So last year during this pandemic, this is actually kind of my brainchild where I was like, you know what, let's try to see if we can get to you guys and bring education, in essence. Kind of sounds dorky, but bring education back to teachers, to educators. And I wanted to do something where it wasn't the typical sitting in the faculty room talking to you about retirement accounts or your pension and all that, which again, we will do over time, but I wanted to talk to real life topics, subjects that kind of really are important to, us. I'm about to have 2 kids. I got 1 kid and 1 on the way. Things like college, things like student loan forgiveness, things like, life insurance, everyday topics. So that's why we're doing this. We don't charge a fee for it. It's something that your districts are sending out to you, which I'm very grateful for. Those of you guys who want to take advantage of this every month, please feel free. If you've got somebody that you think we can help and benefit, great. If not, it doesn't hurt. The other part is every single one of you guys that got this invite from us, we are approved vendors for your 403B in the school district. That's more or less how we came to you guys, but that's not the reason we're coming to you with this. Kaylee and I, with her CFP and with me with 14 years, we've got the knowledge to help people, and we feel like if you do right by people, they're going to do right by you, and that's kind of the way we're looking at doing this. So those are great questions. I tell all my clients, if you got a question, call me. If I don't know the answer, I will find the answer and I'll get back to you. We don't charge for that. That's just part of the service of working with us and doing more full financial planning instead of just focusing on the 403Bs and never getting a phone call back from anybody. So hopefully that answered your question. Anybody else have any questions before we let you guys get the heck out of here for the end of the night? I'll just wait a couple minutes. Kaylee popped up here, both of our contact information, our emails, our cell phone numbers. Please feel free to call us, text us, email us. We will probably follow up with you by this time tomorrow with an email. Just thanking you guys for coming out. If you had specific questions that I did not get to, I think I got to most of them. There was a couple on here that I said we'll talk to afterwards. But if we didn't get to your question, shoot us an email, give us a call. We're here to help out and try to make your lives a little bit easier on the financial side. Kayla, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, you said it well, but really our goal is it's to help people. That's why we do what we do. We know that money is the number one stressor in most people's life, and if we can reduce that a little bit for you, then that's what we want to do. You could reach out to us, like Jonathan said, we'll follow up. Most of that is just to make sure you have our contact information. Like we said at the beginning, if there are any specific topics that have been really weighing on your mind, or you're talking to people, you all have the same questions, let us know. One of these months we'll do, a discussion on that for you. But, I appreciate you all coming out. I know everyone is about go-to meeting, webinar, zoomed out at this point in time, but we appreciate you coming out for a little bit and learning a little about your options.
All right, guys. Again, thank you guys. Have a great night, and please feel free to give us a call anytime and spread the word. As I said, we're going to send you the link of this video. If somebody wasn't able to attend this and you think this will benefit them, give them the link to the recording, and they can watch it anytime. And we'll be sending this out to your school districts to send out to the staff, so that way they can watch it if they weren't able to attend. So have a good night. And again, thank you guys so much for coming out to learn a little bit more about getting rid of those darn student loans.
Thanks, guys.